Good evening, folks. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. We're here to chat through Celtic's 5-1 defeat to Ajax in the Como Cup. Celtic will now be playing Al-Ahli on Saturday as the kind of consolation match, Ryan. Ajax will be moving on to face Como in the final for this pre-season silverware. Tonight's about, our reaction tonight's about the match this evening. Not the greatest 90 minutes to watch, Ryan, in pre-season. I think we'll all forget about that quite quickly.
Yeah, very much a Jekyll and Hyde sort of performance, I would say. First 45 minutes, I thought Celtic were quite positive. A lot of the passing play that they were carrying out was good. It was forward thinking. Really good pass from Kieran Tierney for the equaliser. And I thought they were playing some of the better football. Yes, Ajax looked dangerous when they were coming forward, especially from the likes of Raul Moro, who immediately caught the eye in the first half. But yeah, as I said, it was a Jekyll and Hyde performance. The second half, started terribly and didn't get any better. It seemed as if every chance that Ajax had seemed to find or a great goal by the opposition. Yeah, a second half to forget, and really in general a 90 minutes to forget for Celtic.
Yeah, if you missed the match, Celtic started brightly. They threatened early through Yang, Yunjung Yang, hit the woodwork, and then it was followed up by Nygren with a shot that was well saved by the Ajax goalkeeper. It was Ajax who got themselves ahead. That kind of familiar pattern we've seen at this kind of continental level sometimes, where Celtic lost possession in the attacking half and were kind of caught slacking a little bit in the transition, but it was a really well taken goal when it eventually fell to Steven Berghuis, I think it was, who scored their opening goal. And the best moment by far of the match for Celtic was Celtic's equaliser at that moment, which was scored through Yang and set up by Rio Hatate, but the goal was really sparked by Kieran Tierney's lovely direct through ball. That was just a real highlight. That if you haven't seen the match, I would go out your way to see what Tierney offered in that moment. A real direct threat, cutting through the Ajax press, cutting through the Ajax lines. And that was really the moment of note from a Celtic perspective, Ryan. The rest of it from that point onwards wasn't great. Ajax racked up the goals in the second half. They scored 4 goals in the second half. A couple of them screamers, but a lot of it I felt down to Celtic defensive errors or slack possession, just that kind of sloppiness that we don't like to see at this continental level.
Yeah, it's slackness that's going to cost you at that level against good players. It doesn't matter if there may be youth players coming onto the park, as is what the commentary was saying. They're still good players, and Ajax's youth system will be a lot better than Celtic's youth system. So the players that they're bringing into the fold will likely be first team players going into the future. That's how they blood their youngsters. They bring them into games like these, and then they'll play them professionally or competitively in the Eredivisie. A strong team, they were a strong team last season, unlucky not to win the Eredivisie, but they are a strong team both on paper and when watching them through the TV this evening. But yeah, the Celtic were just punished. Any mistake that they had in the second half, the one that stands out is I think it's Nygren's header or pass back that was immediately intercepted by Ajax, and they were just hungry to get on the end of it, and they got a goal off the back of it a couple of moves later. It was just defensively, and you can't really attribute Kieran Tierney to this because he was taken off at half time, but it seemed as if once Kieran Tierney came off, the whole defence completely capitulated. It just did not. The game just did not get better. It was a bad start, and it did not get better. And it was a bruising second half for Celtic. But lessons can be learned, I guess.
Ajax, like Newcastle, like Sporting, are in this season's Champions League in the league phase and waiting as potential opponents for Celtic if we make it past the playoff round. And while the Newcastle game, the Sporting game, was a chance for Celtic to show their swagger and their kind of ruthlessness at that level, tonight was just the opposite and the perils of what can happen at a European level, I think. And Celtic have shown this quite a lot over the years, as we know. I think last year, even against Dortmund, there was signs of similar things that we saw tonight that we saw against Dortmund last year. Celtic eventually found that defensive resolve and resilience, notably away to Atalanta immediately. That's the kind of defensive resilience they need to find again to go forward in Europe this season. And again, this is the time of the year, I suppose, Ryan, where these things can be learned, or you can go through hardships such as this evening without too much judgment taking place. I know there'll be there's always a reaction to a Celtic defeat. There's a bigger reaction to a heavy Celtic defeat, but you want to be making mistakes in pre-season if you iron them out and make sure you just get out your system before the real stuff starts.
Absolutely. If you're going to make mistakes, make them now and not when it really matters, when there's competitions on the line, when there's points on the line, both domestically and in European football. Celtic have been testing themselves against really good sides in at different stages of their preparations ahead of the new season. Ajax just looked up for it, particularly in the second half tonight. And if you're up for it and you've got the quality that they've got, especially in the forward and wide areas, then they're going to hurt you. And you can't give teams like this opportunities to hurt you, which unfortunately, and I know that they scored a couple of screamers, but some of the goals could have been avoided from Celtic's perspective, and that's probably the most disappointing part. But like I said at the beginning of this point, this is the time to make these mistakes. This is the time to go through these hardships when there's nothing really at stake apart from, maybe a little bit of a social media hounding after the game, a little bit of doom and gloom for a day or two. There's nothing apart from that. There's nothing really gained and nothing lost. It's the same for the highs of the Newcastle game are now going to be the lows of this Ajax game. But it's a pre-season game and there's not much riding on it, which I suppose you can take that as a bit of a silver lining and a bit of a
listen, as much as people were positive about the Newcastle game and saying don't go overboard, the same applies to this one. Disappointing night, but we can't go overboard. It's pre-season. It is pre-season, everyone. I know it's never nice seeing Celtic be defeated 5-1 on any occasion, in any context, but it is pre-season. And look, I don't think Al-Ahli are going to be any easier at the weekend. A good team, reigning Asian Champions League winners, Ryan. That's going to be another tough match for Celtic, and it'll be a much rotated team. It'll be a weaker 11 that starts that game now.
Yeah, I think rotation will be helpful in that game. Yes, because it's a third place game and there's not really anything riding on it. I know it's a pre-season tournament anyway, but those changes will be necessary just to get everybody up to speed. I think you'll see some of the players that came off the bench in the second half start the game against Al-Ahli, and that's against good opposition as well. Some real household names, and the likes of Roberto Firmino, Riyad Mahrez. These are household names that have done it in the Premier League. Brendan Rodgers actually signed Firmino for Liverpool back in the day, shortly before his dismissal from the club. So good players coming up against players that these Saudi Arabian teams are improving. So another good test for the team, but you're hoping that they'll have a better performance than they showed specifically in the second half tonight.
Yeah. And anything else stood out from the game for you tonight, Ryan? And I don't think we're going to labour the point too much. We're not going to be on here for half an hour, folks, because we're just not going to kick in a 5-1 defeat. And given that it doesn't mean much, we could be here and we could all have our faces tripping for the next half an hour, but we'll keep it short and sweet. We just wanted to come on, give a short summary of the game, give a short summation of how we feel about the game. We'll chat more about it on the morning briefing tomorrow. We come on every morning. But anything else sticking out from that for you, Ryan?
Not much, to be fair, apart from the fact that I thought Kieran Tierney looked really positive in the first half. A couple of other performers were quite good, and a couple of other players put in decent performances in the first half, but there's absolutely nothing to write about in the second half. It was very lopsided in that sense. There was a bit of positivity going into half time. You got the equaliser so quickly after going behind through a great goal by Steven Berghuis, but yeah, the second half there's nothing to write about whatsoever, and it's one of those ones that they'll have to take their dumps and move on. But a couple of individual performances in the first half that were pleasing. But yeah, that'll all get forgotten about because of what happened in the second half. You're just hoping that the whole game can be forgotten about in the coming days, and Celtic can move on accordingly.
Positive to see Cameron Carter-Vickers back. Obviously, he underwent some clean-up knee surgery over the summer, joined training last week. Tonight was his first taste of Celtic action. Looked rusty, it has to be said, but again, he was going to look rusty. It's his first minutes of the entire summer, the entire pre-season. So I'm not going to judge Cameron Carter-Vickers too much tonight. We'll see the best of Cameron Carter-Vickers as the weeks go on. We need Cameron Carter-Vickers in his peak form and fitness for the, into the first couple of weeks of the season. There's big matches coming up quite quickly. And he is still, I think, Celtic's best defensive asset as a real guard performer. So hopefully tonight's a good sign that he's back on track over his kind of injury, fitness problems, and on the right road.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the positives that you can take as well. The fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers, despite being part of the defence that's conceded 4 goals, he's now back on the pitch. He's shaking off his injury issues. He's had that clean-up on his knee, and you're hoping that he can now stay fit between now and the end of the season, because he's going to be a vital player at the back for Celtic alongside Kieran Tierney, alongside Alistair Johnston once he makes his return, hopefully in the coming days against Al-Ahli. These players are so important, and they're going to be, in my opinion, the difference between Celtic being successful or not this season. Those defenders will win championships for the team. So if they can stay fit and firing and defensively solid at the back, then Celtic will be in a good place. But it's all about getting fitness at this stage of the season.
Okay, everyone, we're going to wrap up there. As I say, we'll be back in the morning with lots more chat. I'm going to be on with Tony tomorrow morning. We'll dig into some of the issues around the game, some of the issues around squad depth. We will get into everything. As I say, this was just a quick summation of the match, just to give our initial impressions. We'll dig into more on Friday. Hope you have a great Thursday night. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for joining me, Ryan. Thanks for joining us in the live chat. Thanks for joining us below if you are. And we'll see you again next time on The Celtic Way.